Answer.
We're good.
Speeding and anytime.
Ms. Barnes, could you describe what it was like growing up in Lincoln Heights for
Growing up in Lincoln Heights there was a sense of pride. We were often looked at as the lower class community, but if you're from here, you didn't even understand what that meant. Everyone looked over everybody's kids. It was like the perfect saying, it takes a village. And that's what we have. It's a village. I remember the little corner store called Dana Dan's that I used to go to, and it was a candy store, which now Wendy's is there and TikTok's is there. But I remember just specific people. There was a guy who used to walk every day, and we called him Shay. Well, his name was Shayro. So he wears cowboy hat and cowboy boots. I remember my grandmother, that's who I lived with, telling us there were apple trees here. And we would go outside and pick apples for her to make apple pies. So all the kids came and played kickball at my house. So it was full of richness, it was full of pride. Even going to school, we had like the extreme Black History Month where you actually had to study and learn everybody, from Nikki Giovanni to the first sailor to Matthew Henson to Dr. Charles Drew. Like, you just was enriched with all these people, and it gave us a sense of pride to want to do better and to be better, because we were always that little community that was kind of looked at like a statistic.
Are you religious, Ms. Barnes?
I am religious. I grew up, actually, my family church is on Stephens, right across the street from the health center. My grandmother's sister and her husband had that church, and it was actually burned down at one point. Last year or 2 years ago, we just got it to be an historical building. So yeah, my family has been embedded in church and the community here in Lincoln Heights.
Could you describe a pitfall in Lincoln Heights and discuss how Lincoln Heights residents proved their resilience after the challenge?
I think a pitfall was when the YMCA kind of went down, and the pools and the recreation department for our community. It took a lot away from the kids. I remember working at 14 years old. It gave us young kids job opportunities to be able to come and become junior camp counselors, to get our lifeguard certificates and work at the pool. It gave the younger kids an opportunity to come to camp. They were able to go on field trips and learn. And now, since that's kind of been taken away, I think it hit the people in Lincoln Heights pretty hard. Although we do have the St. Simon Center that a lot of the kids attend, it's still a little different than when we had our own. We had a lot to look forward to. We had our fairs every Labor Day weekend. I remember Danny Glover came to one of the carnivals that we had, and it was a big thing. You have some of the older guys playing basketball in the YMCA. You had the staff there. It was just a huge sense of community that kind of just was snatched from us.
Can you hold a second?
Make sure you're quiet up here.
We're quiet now.
Okay, you continue.
I also noticed probably in the 80s when other communities were hit hard with drug use, we had a huge issue with pushing of drugs in our community. And that is something I think that also contributed to help cripple our community. Our young men started to then figure out a way to get easy money, and especially if it was just shoved into our community, then you saw parents, more and more parents being, strung out and abusing alcohol and drug substances. But I do think that we had a strong root in our grandparents and the older people that came before us. So, they kind of just picked up the slack and tried to still be that village to help take care of those kids that were suffering from, some kind of crisis in the home.
Could you tell me about the police community relations when you were growing up in Lincoln Heights versus now?
There were kind of like three phases of the police and the community for myself, speaking for myself. As a young child or adolescent, I remember being in the DARE program, being president of DARE, being president of PASA, which was Princeton Against Substance Abuse. But we had these officers that we could, look up to. They actually knew who you were, or they knew your family. If it looked as if you were going to be doing something that you weren't supposed to do, they, would say, hey, get home, or, try to build that kind of relationship, which I find is missing now. And then, as I became an adult, and the time that I was still in Lincoln Heights, I noticed, the drugs were heavier. The policing, some of it wasn't sincere. There was a situation where I had a police officer, my brother was injured, and I had a police officer laugh in my face when I asked what hospital was he at. Shortly after that, our police station was dismantled. And I think that kind of hurt our community, because we've always been a strong community that built our own. We've asked for assistance, we've asked for help. Slowly things were taken away and things weren't replaced. So when they were dismantled, it kind of hit hard, because then we had to have outside forces who did not know our community like those officers before. And they just come in, they do their job, and then they go home. So there's really not much of a, community and police relationship. I've tried Christmases or Thanksgivings with the help of some others to say, hey, let's try to build some kind of community-based relationship with our police officers. I believe when we have certain community organizations, they should be present, just to get to know the community. I worked with mental health kids, and the best relationship is when you actually put down your guard and let them know that you're actually here for them, and not just for a chat.
I have been researching the history of Lincoln Heights and noticed some economic disparities. Why do you believe that there are no resources in Lincoln Heights?
Funny that you should mention. I feel like there's, a lot of disparities and not a lot of resources here in Lincoln Heights. I actually have a paper article from Lincoln Heights. My great aunt's husband used to be the mayor. Well, his brother was the mayor, Penn Ziegler. And so in the articles, it definitely lays out his plan and his vision and what the community envisioned for resources. They wanted their paved streets. They wanted more modern homes built here. And we were surrounded by communities such as Wyoming, which is a pretty wealthy community, Evendale and Glendale. And I feel like our community was also slowly cut away. They separated Woodlawn and Lincoln Heights. So the majority and the base of kids or families, large families, were here. I remember my uncles who first graduating class from Princeton, when they first integrated, they talked about how stressful, that time was, especially with race relations. And I do think a lot of the reason we don't have what we have is because we're predominantly all African American community. So it's just harder. It's like we're just a dot, and everybody else overlooks us.
And you could say anything to the future generations of Lincoln Heights, how would you inspire them?
If I could say anything to the future generation of Lincoln Heights, I would tell them the world is big. There are unlimited possibilities. They can be whoever they desire to be. Put the guns down. Focus on education. Focus on giving back to your community. Because we also have so many people that come up and never come back. So we'll never grow if we never, rehash our history. We can never move forward.
Could you describe Lincoln Heights in one word?
I think it's family. It's a village. It's exactly the village of Lincoln Heights.
Thank you,
Everybody
Ms.
knows everybody. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can run into anybody and, do you know this family? Do you know this family? My family's main name is Whipple, and that's all I have to say. And people are automatically going to protect me and watch out and look over for me. And that's what I would like to see happen more.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. That's everything for today.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I'm
just be
actually,
careful getting up and watch the mic.
I'm going to